We must cancel culture immediately. How many of you have heard people shouting that from the rooftops as of late? We must cancel culture. The idea is to try to cancel out anything and everything in our culture, in our cultural history that reminds us of oppression, atrocities, bad things happening, and so forth. And again, you've probably seen on the news large groups of people attempting to do that very thing, to cancel or erase American cultural history, ripping down statues, changing names of I mean, it just goes on and on. And I was asked the question by somebody, what do I think about this idea of canceling culture? I mean, people say, well, it maybe makes sense because we don't want to be reminded of our past mistakes. And there are many, like any culture has, right? Um, we don't want to be reminded of our past. We don't want the youth growing up being aware of the mistakes that we have made. Instead, let's just try to cancel the past and let's start afresh in the present. What do I think of that? Well, it's not important what I think of it. What do you think God thinks of that? I mean, think about the nation of Israel, especially in the Old Testament. They did some things that I'm sure, looking back, they wouldn't be so proud of, right? Especially the way they committed adultery against God, idolatry, worshiping all kinds of false gods. Think about God's discipline on his people in the Old Testament, sending them into the Assyrian exile, the Babylonian exile. Boy, especially in the Old Testament, you look at the nation of Israel and you go, after all that God had done for you, and you did this to God? Interestingly, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, God says through the Apostle Paul, writing to church in Corinth, he refers to some of the serious mistakes that the nation of Israel had made in the Old Testament. And he says in verse 6, now these things happened as an example for us, so that we would not crave evil things as they, the people in the Old Testament, did. Interesting. Do you see the Old Testament here? Isn't it interesting that God didn't just cancel out all that culture? All that stuff that happened in the Old Testament? Huh. God included in the canon of Scripture? And we're told that these things happened as an example for us. Again, he says over in verse 11, same chapter, now these things happen to them as an example, and they were written, Old Testament scripture, for our instruction. Now, isn't that interesting? God didn't just cancel the culture of the Jews in the Old Testament. God didn't just say, you know what, let's just forget that. That didn't work out so well. Look what they did to me. Look what I had to do to them. Let's just exclude that or remove that from the Holy Scriptures. Let's start afresh. No, God didn't cancel culture. God included the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Old Testament to teach us for our instruction. Why? So that we would not do the same things that they did, so that we would learn from their mistakes, not just from their mistakes, but also from good things that were done. Look, every culture has good in its past. Every culture has good, bad, and ugly things. And yet, if we remove those things and just try to cancel them and pretend they never happened, how are we going to learn in the present from those things that were done in the past? Again, the good things that were done, the bad things that were done, and the very ugly things that were done. And there were ugly things done in our American past. Just like there were ugly things done as Danielle and I lived in Europe and Croatia for 12 years. Boy, a lot of things were done there too in their past, ugly. But we want to learn from those things so that we don't repeat those things. We certainly don't want to be proud of the bad things, the ugly things that have happened in our culture. But if we erase them, if we just cancel them out, what, we think those things aren't going to be repeated again? Well, we think that suddenly this new generation, it's getting the fresh start. Um, but you don't think that the new generation is going to end up doing some good things? Yeah, and some bad things and some very ugly things as well. And maybe even repeat on even a more extreme level things that were done in the past. And why are they doing it even to a greater level of ugliness? Because they have nothing to look back on and learn from and say, oh, this didn't work so well in the past. Oh, look how ugly that was. Look at the consequences of all that. No, we don't want to repeat that. We want to learn from that. Oh, that's good instruction for us in the present, that which happened in the past, so we don't repeat it. Do you see? So this mantra of we must cancel culture. Did God cancel Israel's past? Did he just wipe it out? No. In fact, God makes it clear. Those things are written in the scriptures for our instruction as an example to us so that we don't make those same mistakes. We need to learn from past decisions, the good ones, the bad ones, and the ugly ones. And yes, it's painful to look back on some of the ugliness and to be reminded of it. It's painful because it's ugly. But maybe that pain is good. It's a good reminder so that we don't do the same things that had been done.